are presenting today is apt. And I just want to say kudos to all those in the foreign policy and diplomacy cluster. You've been doing great job. If other clusters can emulate you guys, I think we will go places as IVLP Nigeria. So please, I just want to thank the organizers of this program, led by the able woman, Rahimat Momodu, who is the lead of this group, this cluster group of foreign affairs and diplomacy. So please, every other person in other clusters, I just call on you people to emulate these people the way they are doing theirs. That is the only way we can make impact. That is the only way we can go around and bring discussions like we have today that will be giving us some ideas on what we have been wondering about. In recent times, you can agree with me that Nigerian foreign policy have been facing a kind of turbulence. But by the grace of God, we will ride all those turbulent weather, and we are going to arrive safely, and we are going to land safely in our destination. And I know that the destination of Nigeria is a good destination. Every man, every woman should put hands together so that we can make this country a great country God has made it to be. And no man, I say no man can change the destination of Nigeria, no matter how bad you come, no matter how bad you wish us, we will still rise and be great once more. Thank you very much to this series. Thank again to all the organizers of this program for giving me this special honor to be to bring the opening remarks. I say, God bless you all. May we run with this meeting now. Thank you, Akeem.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, what we have been waiting for. We are going into the session straight away. And the first speaker, as I've mentioned, is no other person than Honorable Abike Dabiri-Erewa. She's going to talk to us on the subtopic Nigerian foreign relations today. Image and treatment of Nigerians in the. Let me just say a few words about this speaker. Honorable Abike Dabiri-Erewa falls into the category of those brands of people whose names are incomplete without mentioning their first names. Say Michael Jackson. I mean Jackson. But until you say Michael Jackson, then you know the person we are talking about. Say Martin Luther King. She's a seasoned broadcaster and an outstanding parliamentarian representing Ikorodu Federal Constituency between June 2003 and June 2015 in the House of Representatives, where she also served as chairman of the House Committee of Media and Public Affairs. She was also the chairman of the House Committee on Diaspora Affairs. Honorable Abike Dabiri-Erewa attended the Kennedy School of Government, Harvard University in the USA, as well as universities of Ife and Lagos. As a federal legislator, she sponsored, among many others, the Freedom of Information Bill and the Violence Against Persons Bill, which have both been signed into law. She is currently the chairman and the chief of the Nigerian Diaspora Commission, a commission responsible for initiating politics that recognize and harness the potentials of Nigerians in the diaspora. Honorable Abike Dabiri-Erewa has been a voice for the voiceless, a symbol of hope and an inspiration to many. It is with a great pleasure that I yield the microphone to Amazon of a Nigerian for our presentation. Honorable Abike Dabiri-Erewa, welcome.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much, and thank you for the privilege of participating at this event. There's some ruffling noise there. I hope it can be sorted. So thank you, everyone, and thank you for inviting me to this beautiful event. Thank you for the privilege, and thank you, my sister Rahimat, for putting this together, and all those who worked with you. And I hope that at the end of this, the report you come out with would have made an impact in terms of our foreign policy, which I hope that I can give to the Minister of Foreign Affairs to inculcate into whatever foreign policy they're currently working on. So thank you very much for putting this together, and congratulations, Nigeria at 60. At 60, we may not be where we should be as a nation, but I believe that we're progressing gradually as we have a president who is trying to lay a foundation, and hopefully a foundation that will never be shaken or broken again. It will be left for every one of us to continue to build on that foundation. So thank you very much. And as we mark 60, I think one thing is evident. For the first time in the history of Nigeria, we have a Nigerians in Diaspora Commission set up exactly to basically to cater for Nigerians abroad. So that is one good progress. But as we move on, what will be the role of the Nigerians in the diaspora, particularly as relates to this topic, our image and how we are treated abroad? So I'll start first by looking into the few things NIDCOM has been able to do in the last 1 year. We were set up July last year. We started functioning then. Of course, you know, we ensure that Nigerians in the diaspora are number one priority. And we also believe that Nigerians in diaspora, as our chairman said, and by the way, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and my brother for that beautiful introduction about me. I'm swollen-headed. Thank you very much. So what are the things we can do to ensure that the Nigerian in the diaspora plays a critical role in what we're talking about today? Nation building, our image, our treatment, the way we behave and comport ourselves. Beyond $25 billion remittances, we've talked about that a lot, how Nigerians in the diaspora have remitted that much to the Nigerian economy, which is more than 70% of our internally generated revenue. Beyond the fact that we've been saying, oh, the Nigerian diaspora is the most educated immigrant in America and other parts of the world. And we, in this month alone, I'm sure I've congratulated over 20 who have excelled in various fields. Beyond the talk of, oh, we have the best in the world. We have the best professors. We have the best doctors. We have the best nurses. We have the best professionals. What are we doing to ensure that that impacts on our country, Nigeria? And we want to ensure that if other countries have done that, Israel, Pakistan, China, and all that, we should not be left behind. So the diaspora is key to the future of Nigeria. As I speak with you, we're trying to set up a Nigerian Diaspora Investment Trust Fund so that the Nigerian in the diaspora can be able to invest wherever they want to and decide where you want to invest and own your investment. It will be private sector driven with government participation and support, but private sector driven. So I'm sure that will make a lot of impact in Nigeria. We have the Nigeria Diaspora Investment Summit. We'll be doing the third one this year, virtually November 6th and 7th, where Nigerians in the diaspora get together to look at areas of investment. And I'm happy to say that for the past two that we have set up, Nigerians in the diaspora have chosen to invest particularly in the areas of agriculture, the food business, healthcare, and education. And so we hope to build on that. We have a program with the Federal Mortgage Bank called the Diaspora Mortgage Program, where Nigerians abroad can be able to own their own houses, where put a stop to that. And we also have a desk at the EFCC to deal with cases of those who feel, they've been victims of corruption. And we keep stressing one thing. When we talk about image, we are not a nation of fraudsters or 419s, but we should not allow ourselves to be stereotyped. And that is why one of the things we are doing is putting into front burner the success stories of Nigerians abroad. And we continue to do that. We haven't done enough of that, but that's our focus as we move forward. If one Nigerian commits a crime, 20,000 would have done great things. How do we put those forward and celebrate them? Those are those who will build the image of Nigeria. And we are glad that Nigerians abroad are excelling everywhere in the world. In Howard University alone, I think 2 years ago, about half of those who were on the merit list were Nigerians. And I could go on and on, from the doctor in America, Dr. Lutoye, who is the first doctor in the world to give birth to a baby twice. For Masai Ujiri, who won the NBA for Toronto Raptors. Or is it the Bobsled sisters or the Ukeje sisters, who are two sisters from the same family, you know, in the NBA. So that I could go on and on and on about our success stories. But how come it's the bad ones we hear about? Bad news travels fast. So we believe that Nigerians in the diaspora will be the number one image makers for Nigeria. I will be working with them in that regard. And Mr. President, anytime he travels, urges Nigerians to be good ambassadors of the country and always remember home. So talking about image and treatment and nation building, we are number one ambassadors, and we're going to encourage that and put that to the front burner and let the world know that that is who we are. Hardworking, brilliant, intelligent, energetic, determined people. And we put our best into wherever we find ourselves. So where should we be? The top of the mountain. And we're going there with Nigerians in the diaspora, working closely with the government back home. Now, in terms of talking again about image and treatment, as our moderator said there, we've been dealing with issues of how Nigerians have been treated abroad. But I also know that we've been intervening. Take, for instance, South Africa, when the issue of xenophobia became something of an embarrassment. Mr. President took and made a decision, and we brought Nigerians back home. Now, here's the thing, in bringing them back home, we were at the airport to receive them, to welcome them home, to make them feel, you know what, you've suffered a lot, but now you're home. And I'm glad to say that for those who came back home, those who were interested are today, you know, into some programs, some with SMEDA, some with ND, some with Bank of Industry. Some have enrolled in some of the JIP programs. It may be small, but at least we give them a beginning. And they came back and said, and I'm glad when they say, oh my God, I'm so proud to be a Nigerian. Yes, we've had cases in Lebanon where our girls are victims of the kafala policy, particularly in the Middle East. Now, Nigeria was at the forefront again of bringing our girls back, of saying, no, you cannot treat them that way, of demanding that Lebanon must stop that. And we achieved, one thing is Lebanon has stopped that policy of even giving domestic work visas. So let's deal with the ones that are there. They're coming back home. Again, we've been able to engage them in some other businesses. And one of them said to me when she returned from Lebanon, I said, I'd rather be selling guguru, that's popcorn, than go back to where I'm coming from. Of course, Libya, the same thing. Mr. President was the very first president who sent a delegation to Libya. We went to the detention centers. We went inside there, led by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and told Libya we want our people back, and we brought them back. It's a shame, however, that despite all that, some people are still going. We need to have more awareness. And we've realized that no matter the awareness we give, some believe that they just must go. And our message is irregular migration. Even regular migrants have challenge, not to talk of irregular migrants. So in terms of what we do with our citizens abroad, we are trying to do our best to ensure that Nigerian citizens, you know, are not treated anyhow. Where they are, we intervene. Ghana, to leave their country. We've been going back and forth. President has spoken to the president of Ghana. The vice president was there. The speaker was there. But here's the reality. Ghana really does not want Nigerian traders. We can be diplomatic. I'm not a diplomat. That is for the ambassadors and the minister. That is the reality. And now our traders are saying if they don't want us, want to come back home. So we're engaging with them. Those who want to come back home, let them come back home and start their businesses back home. So that we will move to another level. That goes a bit beyond the commission in terms of policy, in terms of reciprocity and all that. But I think Nigeria should take some firm decisions. Emirates has stopped giving Nigerian visas. I'm sure you know about that. But what did we do? The Minister of Aviation decided to put a stop to Emirates flights to Nigeria. And based on that, Emirates is now saying, okay, we'll be giving you visas. But here's the thing, how did we get to that level? We Nigerians should behave ourselves. We had Nigerians in Dubai, in the UAE, who went on the streets, started shooting videos, saying bad things about the country. The country said, listen, Nigerians, will give you free flights. For those of you who are illegal residents, who don't have your work visas, we give you flights to go back home. And they gave them flights as well as accommodation and gave almost 6 months notice. But when the time came, when some Nigerians realized that, oh, they give them flights and tickets, they started sleeping in front of the nation. Then Dubai took in another 200. But the next day, another 200 went to stay in front of the mission, calling themselves and saying, come, 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 you get free accommodation and flights. And when it was time, they disappeared. They did not come on those flights. Now they went and started arresting them and locking them up, and then we start complaining. So what I'm saying is this, we also should behave ourselves. While we stand for Nigerians, we need to be good ambassadors and behave ourselves. But the good thing is that even in the so-called Dubai, where these things are happening, we're focusing on the few that they are taking up the streets. There are thousands that are contributing to the economy there and their assets to that country. I could go on and on about various countries and all that, but here's the thing, and which is a message to Nigerians abroad, is a symbiotic relationship. We need to behave ourselves in that country, but wherever a Nigerian is maltreated, NIDCOM is there to ensure we demand justice. However, if you did commit the crime, we can't save you. Take, for instance, Malaysia. On the passport, it tells you if you come in with drugs, it is death. And then you still go with drugs and you are sentenced to death penalty and we have to go begging. So we should all ensure that our people abroad obey laws, while if you are a victim, NIDCOM will be there to help out. And we're glad we've been doing that quite a bit. And we have quite a lot of success stories. In Saudi Arabia, for the very first time, we got Nigerians out of prison because they did not commit the crime. There are those that are still there. I think we have about 22 on death row in Saudi that had actually had the drugs on them. But we had cases of those who we knew they didn't commit the crime. NDLA gave evidence and we returned them back. And there are some cases we're still working on. And then some have actually been left out of prison during this evacuation and are back home. So long and short of this and rounding up, we need to ensure that we intervene for our citizens wherever they're in trouble, and we have been doing that. But there are some cases where no matter what we do, we can't succeed because that Nigerian actually committed the crime. So we need to embark on more of that. And then again, discourage people going abroad illegally. No matter how terrible your country is, like that girl said, it's better to be selling popcorn than to go through hell in some of these countries. In terms of foreign policy per se, like I said, that is the realm of the Minister of Foreign Affairs to take the final decision on what to do in some circumstances. But the ministry will look at a lot of things before those decisions are taken. But on the part of NIDCOM, we ensure that we intervene wherever we can intervene. I'll take some questions along the line, but without wasting too much time, I just want to say that, you know what, we have challenges at this point in time. We all know that, but the challenges do not determine us or deter us. Where we are is not where we should be as a nation at 60, but we know where we're going to. Another challenge we're facing now that a lot of people complain about is the issue of Nigerians coming home during this COVID-19 pandemic. And based on that, we'll be hosting the national coordinator of the PTF on Saturday to speak with his own mouth on the problems and what can be done about it. 85% have been successful, but the few that have problems, we need to look into the problems and find out what should be done about it. How can the system be better? How can the online portal be better and all that? So we'll be taking that up on Saturday with the national coordinator, Dr. Sani Aliyu. So I'll just say that our people should be at the center of whatever we do in the diaspora. Our people should be at the center of our image as a nation. And in terms of treatment of our people abroad, we must not shy away from saying no to the maltreatment of any Nigerian. But at the same time, we Nigerians should behave ourselves, obey laws of other countries. But the good thing is that we do. But for the few who don't, we have to let them know that they cannot define us as a people. 419 does not have a Nigerian name. Drug does not have a Nigerian address. Those who do it should be penalized. Like in South Africa, we've told them point blank, if somebody commits a crime, deal with the person, but don't stereotype us as Nigerians. So on that note, I just want to say thank you for the opportunity. And I hope that at the end of this summit, we'll have your communique so that it can be incorporated into Nigeria's foreign policy as being drafted by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Thank you very much, and God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The Chairman and CEO, Nigerians in Diaspora Commission. I believe that you deserve a standing ovation for what the presentation you have made this afternoon. So wherever we give you, thank you very, very much. Some questions have come in. Whoever wants to ask any question, please raise up your hands and then we will recognize you. But in the meantime, there is a question from Wilfred, who asked, it's Goma Tanko, said, could you please explain more about the process of getting mortgage for Nigerians in the diaspora, which you mentioned during your presentation?
Yes, I think why we can also have Kabiru Mahi ask his question so that Honorable would answer all of the questions at once because of time. Kabiru, can we have you on?
Yes, please. Good afternoon, all. I wish to welcome all the presenters. Are you with me?
We can hear you. Go ahead, please.
Hello. Yeah. Okay, my question is that what is the position of the student killed in Cyprus? I know Honorable Abike Dabiri promised to follow that case to the end, and I have not heard mentioning anything about that case now. That is my question.
All right, thank you so much. We also have, Honorable, please, we also have Uche, Dr. Uche. I don't know if you want to ask a question so that Honorable would sum it up. Do you have a question, Dr. Uche?
Yes, I want to quickly ask a question. When she was presenting her paper or her message to us, she did mention Nigeria in Diaspora Investment Fund. Who is controlling the fund? Where is that fund located? How can it be assessed? That is one. Then I want to make just a small remark. And that remark is about our internal affairs. Our internal affairs have actually affected our foreign image and our foreign affairs, the way people have taken us, because we have not addressed our internal situation. And that is why you see people jumping out to go and live, whether it is hell or whatever, they want to go there. That is the observation I just want to make. Our internal affairs are seriously affecting our foreign affairs.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Uche. Let me take it from you. I agree with you. I agree with you. But however, for those who have experienced these journeys, when they come back, they will tell you that if they had known, they would never have gone back. That no matter how bad it was here, they would have. I told you about the lady who said I'd rather selling popcorn than go to where I was. But we need to do more here, and that our internal affairs, dealing with our security, which the president is trying to address. It's never going to be a perfect situation. But I'm telling you, when you hear these stories, even your enemy will not go to those such situations if they knew. So it's more about ignorance, it's not more about traffic, it's more about people telling you, don't worry now, you're going to build a house, which you don't end up doing. So every country needs to improve on its internal affairs, and Nigeria is doing just that. And I believe that no matter how hard it is, we're growing better gradually. Government needs to do a lot, create jobs, create an enabling environment for jobs. I'm not going to argue with you about that. I agree with you absolutely, but I'm telling you that if they know, they will not go. So one of the things we're trying to do is even encourage those who are thinking about it to look for something else to do. And we are helping. As I speak with you, we've helped over 200 to get some kind of job or the other. And the states are involved. States are rehabilitating their citizens, giving them jobs and all that. And that should be encouraged on the state level. The Nigerian Diaspora Investment Trust Fund, we've set up a committee to work on modalities for how the fund would be run. So we give them a month. They'll be reporting back to us. When they do, we'll make everything public and then take a decision on it. But what I know for sure that is going to be privately run and be led by the diasporans themselves. You know, government will be there to supervise and give controlling policies, but it will be run by the diaspora. So it's a new thing we're trying to do. It hasn't taken off, and we're hoping that we succeed with it. So thank you, Dr. Uche. As for my brother, Mr. Kabir, yes, Northern Cyprus. What has happened now is that Interpol is on it, based on the instruction of the Attorney General of the Federation. And you know, as I said then, Northern Cyprus is not recognized by any country. So we don't have any diplomatic relationship with Northern Cyprus. So we told Nigerians, don't go there. Some abused me and said, why do you tell us not to go there? So if you go there, you're on your own. Then we don't have any diplomatic relationship with them. They're recognized only by Turkey. So Interpol is working on it, and we hope. I'm not particularly I'm not too sure that we're going to know what really happened to that young man, but we will hope that that will put a stop to all that has been happening. Then on the issue of mortgage, there are some questions on the chat that I took up. One of them is the issue of mortgage, which somebody asked, where the Federal Mortgage Bank is that we're at the final stage of crossing the T's and the I's. So again, you're going to get more details about that. It's going to be properly launched and reintroduced in a big way to the Nigerian public and the diaspora. Then somebody asked about Ghana. Now, why didn't we take a decision when they broke into the embassy? Like I said, that goes beyond NIDCOM. That is more at the realm of the minister, who can take a policy decision. And I think the minister took whatever decision he felt based on information that he has. Then somebody said rhetorics that we should solve that, which I think Dr. Uche has asked, that Nigerians are traveling because things are so bad at home, and that we should go away from rhetorics about Nigerians traveling illegally. Again, I agree with you. Government must improve the life. Government is about welfare of the people. You have to make their lives better. But at the same time, you and I, and even IVLP, we need to let these people know that it's not worth it. At the end of the day, I can't tell you how many have died. It's not worth it, but government must play its role as a nation. Thank you very much, and I hope I answered all those questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so we have Ajia. Ajia is raising her hand. Ajia Rahman. So you want to ask a question? Otherwise, Akeem, you can proceed.
No, I didn't. Did I raise my hand? Sorry.
Okay.
Okay. We have other questions, but time is no longer our friend, as we have two other speakers. So on that note, I want to say thank you to Honorable Abike Dabiri-Erewa.
Thank you very much.
What we are going to do is to forward some of these issues that are raised that could be of benefit in the management of your commission to you, so that you look into them, for the betterment of our country. Thank you very much, madam.
And I want to apologize. I really wanted to stay all through, but I can't. So apart from forwarding to us, I want to have the full recording so that I can also learn from the other speakers. And then you can also send all emails to admin@nidcom.gov.ng. We'll answer all the questions. So my apologies, but I look forward to particularly my other two speakers, Professor Ejiogu and the other speakers, so I can know what they said and learn from it. Thank you very much. I really appreciate this group. Thank you, and God bless you.
You are welcome. You are welcome. Thank you very much. Bye-bye, madam. So we move on. And it is my pleasure to call on the next speaker. The next speaker is the president of Nigerians in the diaspora. The subtopic that is going to be talking on, we build it on what Honorable Abike Dabiri-Erewa has just presented. Is going to speak on the life of a Nigerian in the diaspora today. And this speaker, as I mentioned, is the president of the Nigerians in the diaspora, Asia. He is also a member of the New York Academy of Sciences in the US. He is a one-time associate professor and research fellow at Ritsumeikan University in Japan, and head of department, Electrical Engineering, University of Nigeria, Nsukka. He is currently lead director and lead investigator, World Bank Africa Center of Excellence on Sustainable Power and Energy Development at the University of Nigeria. He's the founder of the Laboratory of Industrial Electronics, Power Devices and New Energy System, which in December 2018 tested a large-scale waste-to-gas gasification systems suitable for the modular supply of power to the entire UN campus. His research interests include conventional and renewable energy devices and systems, electrochemical and electromechanical energy, energy generation devices and systems, among others. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Engineer Professor Emenike Ejiogu.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much for the introduction. I thank all the participants and the immediate past speaker, Honorable Abike Dabiri. Unfortunately, he's not going to be here for my presentation. I'm honored to be among these erudite Nigerians, patriotic, that wants to move Nigeria forward. They've organized this event on the 60th anniversary of Nigerian independence. Thank you very much. For lack of time, I'll go straight to tackle my topic. The Honorable Chairperson and CEO of NITCON has spoken well, what she has said. And we that are in diaspora are the people living what she has just spoken. And I would like to start the life of the diaspora, the life of the Nigerian diaspora today by saying a little bit of the history before. I suppose by the time Nigeria was about to get independence, shortly after independence, and perhaps up to the middle or late 70s, most Nigerians that were going abroad we are going to probably, or most likely, to acquire knowledge with the hope and the enthusiasm of coming back to Nigeria to help develop our country. Then somewhere in the 80s, early 80s, the focus and the interest of those going abroad, I think, probably started to change. They gradually began to be regarded as economic refugees wherever they were going. And the trend accelerated, as we know, and it's worse today. And therefore, if you look at the history of those who grant visas to Nigeria, we've gone from a situation whereby the Commonwealth, every Nigerian can visit any Commonwealth nation. And now we are in a situation whereby you have to beg and spend days and weeks paying a lot of money trying to get visa to countries like Malaysia, that Nigeria had more wealth in the 1960s. So what happened? It boils down to what one of us just asked, that we need to improve our internal affairs for our external affairs to be of any value. And the reason for that is, if you don't have regard for your people, the embassies here are watching, they read the newspapers, they see the way you treat your people. So if you don't have regard for your family member, how do you think other people from outside will have a regard for your family member? It boils down to that. So our external image is very much linked to our internal image. And let's not whitewash it. Let's not try to praise ourselves. We've done well and all that. I think if we want to heal Nigeria after 60 years of independence, we need to tell ourselves the truth and nothing but the truth. So in this time that I've been giving here, I would like to tell us the truth. the truth of the matter today is that the average Nigerian living outside this country faces more challenges than it used to be. In some way, it's easier in quotes because now we have a global village in terms of communication. When I went to Japan in April of 1990, there was no internet. There was no mobile phone. I had to write to friends and families and colleagues in Nigeria. If mail will get to be 2 weeks before it gets to Nigeria, and then another 2 weeks before I get a reply. I came back to my student apartment when I was doing my PhD in Japan, and I see the red motorcycle of Japanese postal workers delivering letters from Nigeria. It made me so happy. So it was 1 month for you to get communication. But fast forward now, we can get communication at the tip of our fingers. But the average life of a Nigerian living abroad is more difficult because of the image we have succeeded collectively in bringing to ourselves. So we need to organize, we need to tell ourselves the truth, we need to have more strategic planning than the ad hoc and tactical planning that we end up doing every time. Yes, Nigerian Diaspora Commission have established after long years. It took us close to 10 years of agitating for that. Can you imagine that? It took Nigerians that are living abroad to convince our nation to create a diaspora commission that will begin to harness in a strategic manner all the expertise that we have abroad, wasting in some cases. Now, you wouldn't believe what I would tell you, that this commission has been established, it's been running for 1 year, but the board of trustees have not been properly and fully constituted. Now, let's not praise ourselves, because what we are supposed to be doing 100%, if we end up doing just 20% of that, we shouldn't praise ourselves for that. The NIDCOM is up and running, but for it to be more effective, some of us in diaspora believe that the tenets of the law that established NIDCOM should be established and should be implemented to the full. And now the provision for that includes, for example, that people from various diasporans in various aspects living in various continents should be part of the board of trustees of that body. But as I speak with you now, that is not the case. And now, so if you're a Nigerian living abroad and you have agitated and cajoled and persuaded the House of Reps and Senate to pass such a beautiful idea as Nigerian Commission, Nigerian Diaspora Commission, you can imagine what you'll be feeling, that the promises of that is not being fulfilled. Perhaps the experts like you who are in foreign policy wouldn't waste time in getting hold of the gazetted the gazetted act that has become law, to familiarize yourself with what the Nigerian Diaspora Commission should be doing in conjunction with the Nigerians that are living abroad. Now, if we have to strategically harness the expertise, the experience of people in the diaspora, we just have to be realistic and be honest to ourselves to tell us that Nigerians that are abroad who have succeeded despite the difficulties of being a Nigerian abroad, despite the fact that they have no strategic plan from the home front to harness them. Now, during my introduction, a lot of things was said about what I'm doing. I'm doing that despite the fact that there was no strategic plan, or that I keyed it into any strategic plan of the government, put at the state level, at the federal level, to get me back here to make the contribution I'm doing. Last year, I headed the team that wrote a $6 million grant from the World Bank for the African Center of Excellence for Sustainable Energy and Power Development.
Prof,
Yeah.
you have 3 more minutes, sir.
Okay, yes. Okay, thank you very much. Now, I did that not because some government official knew my expertise. I did that because of my patriotic duty to come and practically bulldoze my way of leading that, spend my personal finances organizing the group for close to 8 to 10 weeks and getting that proposal through. Eventually, the World Bank granted that. So what am I trying to say? That for us to move forward as a nation, we have to tell ourselves the truth. We have to tell, number one, establish the sense of strategy in what we do. I don't see any strategic planning and any implementation plan to harness the expertise and experience of Nigerians abroad, despite the fact that we have a functional foreign ministry. And now that the Nigerian Diaspora Commission have been added to it, I don't still see any strategic planning. It's been up and running for 1 year, and the board is not properly constituted yet. So how are we going to, from country to country, from nation to nation, organize ourselves economically, organize ourselves in terms of technology harnessing, in terms of some of the problems that the Honorable Abike have just mentioned, the way we are treated abroad. So we need a strategic way of doing things, not ad hoc. I praise the actions of the government so far, given the circumstances. But for those of us who have lived for so long in diaspora, in my case, now 30 years and counting, and some of us have not taken the initiative to be stepping back and forth so that we can see what we can do on our own personal, but that's not how a nation succeeds. We need strategy, and then we need to deploy the tactics that will help us achieve the strategy. So in conclusion, I would rather say that the average life Nigerian today is not so easy in abroad, but can be better if only we are more strategic in our planning. Not confrontational, as you can see from time to time, people going to the embassy complaining that there are no passport machines and stuff like that. So we should go beyond that 60 years counting. And my recommendation is that we should tell ourselves the truth. Let's not just praise ourselves. We've done well. This and no, we haven't done well. We should be able to do better. Nigeria got electricity and railway within 10 years of Japan in the 19th century. But where are we today? Our railway and our electricity. But within 6 to 10 years, Nigeria was getting those technologies that Japan got. So I'd like to conclude thank you very much. And then I will be ready to take some of your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Ejiogu. It's been a wonderful time listening to you. I will be the first to ask a question. And my question is, just in a minute or thereabout, what will you say as someone who is in the diaspora and you have members in your organization that are all Nigerians in the diaspora? You see how they live, you know their experiences. So what will you say is the life of an average Nigerian in the diaspora like today?
All right, so well, we need to divide in quotes the type of Nigerians that live abroad. There are those who are, who went there for educational pursuits and they are working in a standard environment, the so-called professionals. And there are those who are in one kind of employment that is not suited to what they have read in the university and stuff like that. So depending on which group you belong to, the type of experience you have differs a lot. For some of us who are in the so-called regular formal economy, we are more or less treated, well, not exactly equal like the citizens, but we're close to that. For those who are, for reasons of not being in regular employment. They might even be illegal. I can tell you the life there is not so easy. It's very difficult. Even the embassy sometimes don't even want to see them. So it's really sad that that is happening. And we should do all our best. And the best way to make sure we reduce that is by increasing our economy. If you go abroad and things are not well, then you get back home with whatever little savings you make and establish a small scale industry and carry on your life. Just like the Honorable chairperson of the commission said, somebody said he would prefer to be selling corn than going back to. So we need to create the awareness. We need to create the opportunities for people to actually say, okay, let's get home. Let's go back home. Home is where we belong. And for us to do that, we need to recognize that all Nigerians abroad are not in the same category. And those that are not professionally equipped to survive in these countries, we should create the landing, pad for them to come back to Nigeria quickly and then reestablish themselves in the society.
Thank you very much, Prof. Okay. My other question, and I'm sure that many of our listeners would like to know how your organization, the Nigerians in Diaspora Organization, how it has been interfacing with the Nigerians in Diaspora Commission after its creation, and before its creation, how you have been interfacing with the Foreign Affairs Ministry. What has been your experience like?
Okay, thank you very much. Let me give a little bit of background on the Nigerian Diaspora Organization. The whole story started during the Obasanjo regime from 1999, when he felt that Nigerians abroad, that we have a lot of treasure. We have a lot of people who are now experienced, so Nigeria should have what is now called the brain gain, because Nigeria lost a lot of brains in the 80s, the 70s and 80s. So this was an attempt, a strategic attempt by the government to bring back Nigerians, get them involved in national development, in economics, in technology, and whatever field that they can. And so the idea of NIDO was back, Nigerian Diaspora Organization. Now, Nigerian Diaspora Organization is supposed to be a worldwide organization, organized continent by continent. So we have the Nigerian diaspora. It's first of all started from Europe and America, where we had the greatest number of Nigerians. So we have Nigerian diaspora Europe, we have America, South and North, and then we have Asia, we have Oceania, consisting of New Zealand and Australia, and then we have Nigerian diaspora Africa. So there are 6 Nigerian diaspora organizations worldwide. So, and we cooperate among ourselves. We have regular meetings. And of course, July 25th was declared by the Obasanjo regime as the Nigerian Diaspora Day. And for that length of time, from the mid-2005 till presently, every 25th of July, Nigerians from all over the world come back and celebrate the Nigerian Diaspora Day conference in Abuja, or whichever state governor is willing to host us. So I can say that Nigerian diaspora has been willing and yearning to contribute to the national development. In fact, our logo is, Cooperation for National Development, harnessing the diaspora for national development. So that enthusiasm is there, that drive is there. What is lacking is the organization, because we are essentially abroad, okay? And we need to have a very strong presence at home. And therefore, we organize to say we need a diaspora commission so that we can better liaise with that commission. And by the time we did all the lobbying and stuff like that, we had what we thought was a very good law that will now better organize us to contribute to the development of the country. So by now we're expecting to have various departments of the commission, and then in various major countries in the world, as the provision for the law says, we're not supposed to have a diaspora commission office that will now better harness, will now have a database of the professionals in whatever category you are, so that we can, with that database, we can now say, okay, the Nigerian University Commission, for example, so and so university is lacking in so and so people. can we have volunteers that can come in during the summer break to deliver lectures at their own expense? Nigerians are willing to even come at their own expense, but the organization is not there. Then you can see one company somewhere, like they say, for example, the Ejiogu steel. We have experts in steel, we have experts in material engineering and all that. Now, and we Nigerians that we are yearning to come and contribute, but once in a while, what you hear is, oh, they've brought the Russians again, they've brought the Indians. Look at our railway, for example. One of the best railway engineers in the world is a Nigerian. But what do we see? So the problem is not the Nigerians in diaspora, if I have to tell you the truth. The problem is that despite the fact that the organization, Nigerian Diaspora Organization, was the brainchild, that promise is not being realized. And we wonder why. And one of the reasons is that for some reason, some people in Nigeria feel threatened when Nigerians in diaspora with knowledge and experience want to actually come and contribute. If I begin to tell the experience I have when I was, putting in the proposal I just said I got with the World Bank, $6 million for this center, you'll be very surprised.
Prof.
Yes, please.
Prof, we are actually interested in all this, really. But time is not our friends anymore. In fact, there are people. There are people who are to ask questions, and I will have to their indulgence that they keep their questions until after Professor Ukeje has spoken, because they spoke. Yes. So so in the meantime, let me ask, just for a moment break, so that I can bring in Professor Ukeje, and when we have more time, then those questions can come in. So just wait a moment, Prof.
Okay, that's okay. That's okay. That's okay.
So
thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, sir. So, Professor Ejiogu, we are very grateful for your incisive presentation. We have gotten to know more. And indeed, at the end of this webinar series, we are going to have a report prepared, which we are going to present through our lead to the Foreign Affairs Ministry, in order for us to improve on how we handle our affairs in our country. So once again, thank you very much, Prof.
Thank you, it's a pleasure.
I want to call on the next speaker, the last but not the least. The next speaker teaches at Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife. He has held several key positions. Notably, he was visiting Fulbright scholar at Temple University, Philadelphia in the USA in 1996. He was a visiting research fellow at the Nordic African Institute in Uppsala, Sweden in 2000. He was a departmental lecturer in African politics and development at Oxford University's Development of International Development, as well as holding concurrent positions as senior advisor on the African Peace and Security Program and head of Education and Professional Development Department at the Institute for Peace and Security Studies, Addis Ababa University, Ethiopia. His broad teaching and research is at the intersection of governance, security, and development in Africa, as well as in global affairs. It is my honor to invite Professor Ukeje, Professor Charles Ukeje, to make his presentation. Professor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. I'd like to wish my compatriots happy 60th Independence Day anniversary. There are people who believe that there is not much cause to celebrate. But the fact that we are alive and well is enough. There are people who have passed through challenges as we are currently going through as individuals and as a nation, and even the entire world, but they have not been able to make it. So I think there is every reason for us to be glad. I'd like to thank the organizers of this event. I'd like to take a cue from Charles Anyogolu. I watched him yesterday, where he was trying to pronounce the name of the association. And it was not just a handful, it was a longful. So I'd like to thank the IVLPAA, especially the Foreign Policy and Diplomacy Cluster, for inviting me to speak at this event. The general theme, of course, is promises of independence and Nigeria's foreign policy. But I've been asked to speak specifically to the issue of, to the theme, the history and trajectory of Nigeria's foreign policy, why we are where we are. I think the best way to start for me, and perhaps this should have been the lead one, but the fact that Honorable Abike needed to leave, because in a way, I believe that it sets part of the tone for the kind of conversation that had already taken place. But I'd like to say that where to start from is to reflect on what were those original ground norms, principles of Nigeria's foreign policy at independence. And there were five. Five of them as enunciated by our first Prime Minister, Tafawa Balewa. Two of those principles are common to every country. And these are respect for legal equality, independence, sovereignty, and territorial integrity of all states. This is every country in the world take that as a sacrosanct principle. So which means that if you attack my country, I'm not going to just fold my arms and say, well, I'm doing, this is New Testament. No. The second one, which is also sacrosanct, is respect for the doctrine of non-interference in the internal affairs of other states. If I don't interfere in your own affairs, you should not put your nose in mine. So those two principles are sacrosanct to a larger respect. The third principle, of course, is the principle of non-alignment. And this was a product of a Cold War era, an era of intense Cold War rivalry between the East, led by the defunct Soviet Union, and the West, led by the United States. But since the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1989, 1990, and the emergence of a unipolar world, at least in geostrategic terms, that principle needn't be there again. So for those who are clamoring for a revision of Nigeria's of the principles on which Nigeria's foreign policy stands, this is probably one that is, this is the weakest link in my view. The fourth and the fifth one that I think are very, very important, and I'm going to explain very shortly. The fourth one says that Nigeria will join international organizations that are judged to be relevant to its needs, while the last one says Africa will be the centerpiece of Nigeria's foreign policy. I think here now, while we can conveniently remove the first one, while the first two things are principles that underline every state's behavior, underline every country's foreign policy, the last two are particularly important for Nigeria. There's no doubt that a lot of water has passed under the proverbial bridge for Nigeria as a country. And there's no doubt also that there are still many more rivers to cross. I have heard people complain about the need, talk about the need or clamor for a review of Nigeria's foreign policy. And I think I would have to add to that a review or an overhaul of the architecture on which Nigeria's foreign policy, on which Nigeria's external affairs is erected. There's a need for an overhaul of this architecture in order to make it more relevant to the needs of this country. It's very interesting that since Balewa made these 5 principles, the last and only time we have had any serious conversation around Nigeria, apart from this conversation we are having today, which I think is very instructive, the last time we had any serious conversation around Nigeria's foreign policy was in April 1986 under the Babangida regime, where we had this all-Nigerian conference on foreign policy, which was held at the Nigerian Institute of Policy and Strategic Studies in Kuru. Since then, we have not had any further conversation around Nigeria's foreign policy. With some justification, those who say that we should revise Nigeria's foreign policy might be right. there are elements of it, as I pointed out, that have become stale. Perhaps increasingly, Nigeria have become very reactive instead of being proactive on foreign policy issues. So things must happen before we react, okay? Nigerians in Ghana or in any other country for that matter must be in trouble before we respond to the realities, before we engage the countries where they have challenges. And I think to a very large extent, those who make this point are right. I have no doubt at all that we need to rethink Nigeria's foreign policy. But I think that it's a task that cannot be left to government alone. It's so important to be left to government alone. And certainly dangerous to be left for citizens alone. I'd like to reflect on some of my take on these 5 principles. I believe, and very strongly too, that the 5 principles are merely a guidebook, not the actual playbook. So for those who are critical of these principles, who say that they are no longer relevant today, they miss the point that it is just a guidebook and that the playbook has to be different. The playbook has to be dynamic. The playbook has to respond to changing realities, that the country faces in terms of pursuing our interests. I believe also that implicit in this principle, implicit in these principles is the underlying notion of country first. And I'm saying this because I've heard a lot of people talking about Nigeria first, and it sounds to me like a kind of parody of the American first under Trump. But every single country in the world pursue their foreign policy, even when they do not say so, in order to be able to advance their own individual interests. Of course, it's a different question what these interests are or what determines those interests. This is a debate that we have had consistently in the field of international relations. My third point is to say that I don't see much wrong with the principles in themselves, at least the last 2. Nigeria cannot ignore what happens in its neighboring countries. It's almost like putting fire, allowing fire on your roof and going to sleep with your 2 eyes closed. What is perhaps missing in my view is the diligence and consistency in the pursuit of these principles, implementing them on the basis of reciprocity and taking cognizance of changing realities that the country faces. We cannot just stipulate these principles. For instance, we cannot say Africa first. Africa will be the centerpiece of our foreign policy. But we must actively engage in terms of this principle. So Africa should be the centerpiece of our foreign policy. We should be alive to our responsibilities to the continent. But it should not be on the basis of take the money and run. Rather, we should make our money follow our interests. So the investment, for instance, that people have complained that, oh, after all the companies have taken over Nigeria, that question wouldn't arise our interest in and with the expectation of returns. Nobody does Father Christmas. There's no country in the world that does Father Christmas. No country's Mother Teresa. So my point, therefore, is that when Nigeria pursues its foreign policy, it must pursue it with the intention that something must come out of it, not out of free lunch. There's no doubt that in good or bad times, Nigeria's commitment in terms of its leadership role in Africa, is a reality that we must confront. We have played out such roles in Southern Africa, creditably. We have played the same role and continue to play the same role in West Africa. What I think perhaps is left now is for us to make a shift from the principle of, or the policy of drop the money bag and run. There is hardly any follow-up, and this is my worry. There is hardly any follow-up in those places where we have invested huge human and material resources. There was no follow-up in Liberia. A lot of Nigerian soldiers died in Liberia, in Sierra Leone. In the whole of Southern Africa, when you listen to our ambassadors that will say in Southern Africa, okay, you would see that there was no backup plan. There was nothing in terms of what is it that would be our strategic interest or strategic pursuit beyond this reality. Yes.
Bro, please, you have 3 more minutes, sir.
I recognize that. So
thank you, sir.
I believe that today we must move away from the frustration expressed by someone like Jogaba, who says that we invested so much in Angola, and as we did in many other countries, without any returns. Our foreign policy must be predicated on returns. There's no doubt in my mind that Nigeria will continue to play a major role in West Africa and in Africa. And I'm really very interested in that. And I think that no matter what we say, no matter the challenges that we face as a country, okay, that reality must remain. Nigeria as a country, given its manifest destiny, given what resources it has, whether we misuse those resources or not is a different question here now. But we cannot afford to say that because we want to pursue Nigeria first, we will abdicate our responsibility to the continent. And finally, I want to make the point that the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic gives us another opportunity to reset Nigeria's domestic and foreign policy imperatives. I believe that the current COVID-19 pandemic has imposed a lot of constraint on big and small countries, weak and strong, poor or rich, Nigeria inclusive. It affords us an opportunity to take care of important housekeeping matters, both in our domestic and in our foreign policy domain. No matter the rethinking that we need to do in terms of our foreign policy, therefore, we cannot throw away the fact that Nigeria will remain crucial and important in Africa, especially in West Africa. If, after all, if we are the largest economy in Africa, even if the economy is not able to respond fully to the realities and needs of Nigerian citizens, if we have the largest population on the continent, the next country to us is Ethiopia. It's only about half of Nigeria. We literally have no place to hide. So Nigeria should not and cannot pursue a policy of isolation, hiding under the parody of Nigeria first. We must not abdicate our responsibilities. In the post-COVID-19 era, therefore, I think that what we should be thinking about is paying more emphasis on multilateralism. And I say this with a sense of concern because I worry about how we invest in ECOWAS and how we invest in the African Union, and we do not get much in terms of dividend of our investment. I mean, if you look at the topmost hierarchy of the African Union today, you probably will not find any Nigerian. We cannot put our money in an institution like that and not demand, not even expect, and not demand some kind of quota, in terms of our, our citizens working at the highest level in those countries, in those institutions. And it's the same thing applies to ECOWAS. Finally, and even more important, we need determination. We need consistency. I'm rounding up.
Thank you.
Finally, we need determination. We need consistency. We need to work on our economy in order to be able to add value to our foreign policy so that we can, in the 21st century, use more smart foreign policy. So that in the 21st century, we can leverage on soft power. If we do not do this, other countries will continue to deride us, make towards other countries. We will always have that challenge that they will never take us seriously. You must take yourself seriously first. You must take your citizens seriously first before you can expect other people to take you seriously. And this is the story of Nigeria, and this is the challenge that we have to address as a country. And we must do this very quickly. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Professor Ukeje. It's indeed a very interesting time that we are listening to you. And I'm sure that so many of us here today, we have learned more about the reason why we are where we are, why we are not yet where we're supposed to be. I can see Mr. Goma Tanko's hand up. It's time to ask questions. So, Mr. Tanko, the floor is yielded to you. Mr. Obi, please unmute Mr. Tanko.
Okay.
He's unmuted. So
yeah, he's unmuted. Yes, I think his connection is having issue. Maybe we can call Patrick Otoro if we.
Mr. Tanko, we'll come back to you. Dr. Agbanusi, I saw your hand up, so you are free to go on, sir. Simon, please unmute him. Okay.
Thank you very much. I just want to quickly ask two questions. One to my prof, Professor Ejiogu. This question is for you.
Okay.
Have you made effort, my prof, to maybe articulate what you feel that is those strategic planning you need these, Nigerian foreign affairs to apply? Have you done that? Because you that is wearing the shoe know where it pinches more. So what I expect from you is to articulate those strategic planning or strategic plans you want them to execute and put them forth. When you do that, then you can now blame them if they don't implement that. But let me go also to Professor Charles Ukeje. One thing I loved so much about your presentation was that you really went straight and hit the nails on the head. You know, because sometimes we rabble-rouse, we talk a lot of things and we end up rhetorically without implementation. I love the way you made your presentation, because your presentation to me looks so practical, because you wanted us to do 1, 2, 3, 4. And if we can carry this he has presented today forward, more than what we just, because personally, I don't like attending meetings just for meeting's sake. I love practical and actionable.
Dr. Agbanusi, you're
please
contributing or ask questions.
No, I'm saying that Professor Ukeje should help us. The two profs should also help us to put those things down and make the submission so that we can run with that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. I guess those are contributions, not questions. And the two learned professors, they have heard what Dr. Agbanusi said.
Yeah, can I respond to if we have put up strategy?
Can I ask my question now, please?
Yes, Mr. Goma.
Okay. Good afternoon, sir.
Mr. Patrick Otoro.
Yes. That's, I'd like to thank our two professors for well-presented papers. Professor Ejiogu, my question first goes to you. You talked about the...
Let me call you back.
You talked about the board of trustees of the NIDCOM not yet set up for the past year. I want to ask, what effort has been made by your group to ensure that that commission, board of trustee, is constituted so that it can work effectively? That's one. Then my other question is to Professor Charles Ukeje. I like the fact that you said clearly that Nigeria has been in the habit of putting our money where our mouth is not. What can Nigerians, and indeed the Nigerian government, begin to do from now on? We have heard severally over the years how our government has invested. You have highlighted quite a number of them. But what can we do going forward so that this story, this merry-go-round story of we always playing the Father Christmas all over the world and we have nothing to show for it, what can we do as Nigerians? Thank you, sirs.
All right. Can I respond? Mr. Chairman of the session, can I respond?
Yes, please go on, sir.
Okay. Well, yes. I can tell you that we've put up enormous amount of effort to make sure that the commission is properly constituted. We, at a point, even took out full-page newspaper advert in the Guardian to draw attention that the commission has not been properly constituted and is up and running. That's not proper. We've written the presidency, the AGF, because the act stipulates that the various continental Nigerian diaspora organizations should nominate 2 persons per the continental NIDA organization. And we've done that, and we've written reminders. So I can confidently tell you that we have put up the effort, because we, over the period of 10 years, lobbied and persuaded the National Assembly to pass that law. So we, at the very, very beginning, we are the organization that we are responsible for initiating the action. So we cannot be behind in trying to make it more functional and trying to encourage the government to implement it properly according to the law. So the answer to your question is simply yes, we've put up the effort, but just as I mentioned, there seemed to be this, I don't know, unsaid attitude that any effort that some of us in the diaspora is trying to make for contribution to Nigeria, we always told, you think you can come and tell us how this country is run. You think you know better. So there's that attitude, unfortunately. And that's why I say we have to tell ourselves the truth. Because I don't see why we should be begging for an act of the National Assembly that have been passed and it's run for 1 year to be properly constituted for whatever reason that they have. I'm sure they have their own good reasons. But this is for the sake of Nigeria, for God's sake. Okay, so if there should be people constituting the board of directors, as the act says, it's so unfortunate, and that is the situation of things. And then the first questioner talked about strategic plan. Yes, we have over the years presented strategic plans both in health, in agriculture, in energy, in power, in ICT. If you are conversant with the Diaspora Day that has taken place over the past 10 to 15 years, there have not been any year that we didn't come to Abuja or somewhere in the country like Lagos or Tinapa and Cross River to make presentations to the officials of the ministries, because all the ministries are usually there. Usually the vice president that comes to open the Diaspora Day, sometimes the president himself. So we have been in interaction. We have presented 1,001 countless strategic plans all over the place every year. That's why some of us have not taken the bull by the horn, that if there are no strategic plans for us to start realizing, then we have, taken some steps forward. That's why you see some of us trying to have 1 foot and 1 foot back in Nigeria, 1 foot outside. For example, somebody like me, okay? And then, there are some things that have been in the press that I personally sponsored with my own money. So it's not as if some of us have not been making the effort. So the effort has been made over the years, but just like Professor Charles Ukeje said, that strategy in foreign policy, that paying attention to details, you can see it again, not being implemented even for fellow Nigerians, not just trying to have a foothold organization we have sponsored or having stopped what happened in Sierra Leone, only for the British Army to take, they stopped the civil war in Syria. But I know how many ECOMOG troops died in Liberia and Sierra Leone. But we let the propaganda of the Western nation make it seem as if it was the British. So the same attitude of not having a strategy to, complete what we started is still the same attitude that makes the nation not harness the enormous amount of expertise, of experience that we have outside. It's not in want of we trying. We have tried so much that they call us fools for having even tried. And that's why you see some are very cynical. There are very people in diaspora that are very, very cynical. We have expert surgeons, we have expert, nuclear physicists and all the rest of them. But they become so cynical because it's like, okay, I mean, why should I be killing myself to try and help Nigeria? Thank you.
Yeah, Professor Ejiogu, thank you very much, sir. I saw the hand of Ajia Rahima Mamadu.
Akeem, can I go ahead?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes, please.
Yes, thank you very much. Just to congratulate all the three speakers, and unfortunately, Abike is not here, but like she said, we are going to submit some of the questions for her that have been written in the chat. We'll submit to NIDCOM. But quickly, I just wanted to react to Professor Charles' presentation. Well done, Professor Charles. I didn't expect anything less. But quickly, what is happening to NIIA? We don't hear about, I remember when we were in the media, Angela is here with me. Even as Nigerian women journalists, we were holding activities at that center. It was everybody's rallying center. We hosted, if I remember correctly, the first appointed female president of Africa. People think it's Salif. It's not. It was Ruth Perry. Ruth Perry was appointed for the transition. She is the first, although appointed. We had how the women were there. We used to come for regular meetings, workshops at the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs. What happened? For me, that is one sign that our foreign policy has collapsed, in my view, because that was one center we used to engage with. Yes, I agree with you totally that we need not just to review our foreign policy, we may not necessarily change our 5 pillars, is the way we conduct, is the way we engage, but we also should begin to, how will I call it, also overhaul the architecture on which basis Nigeria conducts foreign policy. How are we using, yes, we have NIDCOM. Oh, we are trying to leverage on their the money they bring in, the remittance, but that shouldn't be the only use of our diaspora. How do we use them as externally recognized ambassadors? You and I, being in Addis for a long time, you know what I mean by that. We are not using our citizens enough. Give a simple example of many of my Igbo brothers who are in China, who can speak Mandarin. What are we using them for? Nothing. No connection with them. We don't use them to advance our foreign policy with China. We don't speak Mandarin. We are signing documents with China. We cannot interpret them. Yet we have many Nigerians that are in China, some married to Chinese women that we can easily use. We are not doing that. Why are we not doing that? And then lastly, my friend, my sister, Dr. Vivian, also said something about it in the chat. Is it not time that Nigeria had the best ways to extend our influence within ECOWAS and the AU? And we have the money, we have the resources. I know we have the technical cooperation. I don't know how well that is working. It used to be very popular in Africa. So these are some of the questions that I just wanted us to exchange as Nigerian citizens. We should stop lamenting. We should do something. We should insist that the government should do something.
I think the questions are a lot. If the moderator would permit me to respond to them. Is it okay? Can I respond to the questions, please?
Yes, please, Prof. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I didn't expect any less from Hajara Rahima. I mean, she punches, very, very hard. So, I mean, your questions are very relevant, and I'd like to speak with those questions first and foremost. Of course, I don't work for the Ministry of, for the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs, so I cannot comment about the state of the institution at this time. But I have been affiliated with the institution for a very long time as a member, and as one of those that you could probably say a small circle of foreign policy intelligentsia in Nigeria. I think that what I would like to see the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs do is to, to be very, very creative, very much like the Chatham House, very much like the South African Institute of International Affairs, that are in the same field. So I believe that it should properly work as a think tank for foreign policy. It should be a place to train, to support the training of future foreign policy experts and staff of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And it should actually be a center of excellence in foreign policy. Indeed, this kind of conversation that we're having today should actually be happening at the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs. And finally, it should work with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and government, in order to articulate and to think deeply. Because the fact is that foreign policy issues, like every other issue, requires deep thinking. It requires investing substantial intellectual input. And I believe that this is what the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs should be doing. And I think that every well-meaning Nigerian will share this view with me. There are a number of other questions. So, Patrick Otoro had asked, what can we do? That I said, when we put our money, we should put our money where our interest is. It's not anything new, actually. This is how every country, every serious country, every major country behaves. When the Americans went to Iraq, they did not just go with soldiers. They went with engineers. They went with petroleum geologists. They went with people that can actually do all kinds of things in the country. I'm not saying that we should go to that extreme, but I think that we've gotten to that point where we should not just, it is necessary for us to pursue foreign policy, but it is not sufficient to expect that our foreign policy will always attract the right thing. Let me give you one example. You and I know that during the last cycle of contest for key positions in the Ministry of at the African Union, we did not feature at all. In fact, the only candidate that we put forward was virtually like paper candidates. I'm sorry to say that. And so we were defeated. But this is an institution that we've invested so much money into. And we've been investing that money since 1963 when the OAU was established, and we keep investing in it. So what shall it profit a country to put so much money into a foreign policy venture and does not receive anything in return? And I think for me, this is a major challenge that Nigeria has to respond to. And it's the same thing within ECOWAS, the institution where you work with. How many Nigerians are there in key positions? I don't mean as cleaners or as dumb men and women and so on and so forth. I think that Dr. Agbanusi, the truth is, I worry also about the rhetoric. So much rhetoric about, not just foreign policy, but Nigeria that you and I, every one of us, will bequeath to our children. And it's a legitimate worry that we should all have. Increasingly, our children are being trained for the diaspora. Okay? Not for this country. Okay? And that should worry everyone. That's a major hemorrhage in terms of intellectual capacity. So I worry here. Regarding Ghana, somebody had asked the question, why is there no retaliation against Ghana? My immediate response is that, at least my reading of it from a distance, is that there's perhaps more to the story than meets the eye. I'm worried that what happened in Ghana might in fact be partly a reflection of how we do things back home, with very minimal due diligence. So if, for instance, you're supposed to perfect a land deed and you don't do it, and then it expires, what do you expect? So for me, we need much more consensus. And this goes back again to the question about the kind of people that run our institutions, not just at home, but that run our institutions abroad. Okay, what kind of competencies, what kind of experience, what kind of expertise do they have? There was a time when it was possible, for instance, to identify, to call 12 top ambassadors, in our different missions abroad who have distinguished themselves. But increasingly, what do we find? We find more and more, of non-career political ambassadors. Some of them, don't get me wrong, excellent in their own rights, can do a lot of leverage, but we miss that opportunity. Dr. Olaide, finally, Dr. Olaide asked the question, can our economy support our foreign policy? And my immediate response to you will be to say that money is necessary but not sufficient to pursue a foreign policy of goodwill. Okay? Money is necessary but not sufficient. So those days when we had so much money, did we achieve much in terms of leveraging our foreign policy for long-term interests of Nigeria? No. Now that Nigeria has challenges in terms of money, okay, does it mean that we still cannot play, a positive foreign policy, within the limited resources that we have. It is possible. I believe it's doable. But we must be able to exercise that goodwill, and we must be able to think strategically about where we want to invest the little that we have. If we don't do that, we miss another opportunity, sadly so.
Thank you very much, Prof.
Yeah.
I have some hands up, and I will call you three of them so that they can ask the question one after the other, and then the answers can come immediately after. Mr. Kabiru Mahe, Ozonia Ojielo, and Mr. Muftau Yahu. Just as I mentioned your name, Mr. Kabiru Mahe, the first to ask his question, followed by Miss or Mr. Ozonia Ojielo, and then Mr. Muftau Yahu.
I think my observations have been made by Dr. Avosini that the Nigerian in diaspora need to harness their observations of making of a strategic plan for Nigeria and forward it to the government. The other thing is, I would like to appreciate the contribution of Professor Charles for saying that there is need to overhaul the foreign policy of Nigeria. That are my observations. Thank you. And sorry, the other thing is, if it's a suggestion, if this organization can bring out a communique out of this session, at least it will have, and forward it to the government, please. Thank you.
You're welcome. I assure you that there will be a communique, and we're going to forward it to the appropriate quarters.
Thank you.
Ozonia Ojielo, it is your turn, please.
Thank you very much, moderator and fellow countrymen. Congratulations on our independence anniversary. I live here in Bishkek, in Kyrgyzstan, in Central Asia, as the United Nations Resident Coordinator. So first of all, thank you, Madam Rahimat, for inviting me to this discussion. And I'd like to endorse and celebrate my friend Prof. Ukeje and Dr. Ejiogu, but also convey my appreciation to Madam Abike Dabiri-Erewa for her statements. I endorse everything that Prof. Ukeje and Mr. Ejiogu have said. Even though I work for the United Nations system here, I'm almost like the ambassador of the Nigerian community, which is an absolute shame. You have close to 200 Nigerians in this country. There's no Nigerian presence. Nobody knows which branch of our foreign ministry is responsible for them, whether it is the mission in Russia or is the mission in Iran. We had a Nigerian who was killed here last year on the streets. I was one that had to intervene. The ambassador in Russia couldn't be interested. I couldn't reach the ambassador in Iran. And ultimately, I had to now reach out to the government, to the prime minister, to demand justice on his behalf. And I followed up that case until the person who killed him was sentenced to 8 years in prison. And I lament, because you see the huge opportunities and potentials for our community. So the idea that this platform, the International Visitors Program, is organizing this kind of reflection, I think it's an excellent idea. Rahimat, all these discussions will amount to nothing if this association does not develop a policy document that you can share with Mr. Abike Dabiri. She alone will not make that change happen. You should also share with the foreign ministry, and there ought to be some kind of platform for these conversations to take place. The problem with our country is not the lack of knowledge or expertise or experience. These two speakers have demonstrated it. Madam Abike Dabiri has demonstrated it. It's a lack of action, the political will. These things are not rocket science. You know, between you and myself and Charles, we've been discussing this during our time in Addis Ababa over the last couple of years. It's translating them to action. But if your association can contribute to translating even 1/3 of all of the ideas that you have heard today, you would have contributed significantly to pressing that reset button in rebuilding the new Nigeria. We have Nigerians here are doing a lot of business, particularly in the education sector, because the common language here is Russian, or they speak the national language Kyrgyz. They're offering English language programs, and I got to meet quite a number of them who are doing extremely legitimate work. There are those in the shadow economy, there are those that play football, but it's a dynamic community. So if all of us can take some of the ideas that Charles and Professor Ejiogu have mentioned, I think it will be a different kind of community. So I thank you for this opportunity. I've tried to stay on to listen to you because it's almost 9 p.m. here in Kyrgyzstan, but I think staying on and listening to you guys. It's been a worthy conversation. So I thank you guys for organizing this, and good luck.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ejiogu. It's wonderful to have you with us. Now, I call on the next speaker to please answer his question. Mr. Muftau Yahoo.
We also have Angela
Agua-Wike, and Ejinaka.
Yes.
Please be on standby. Angela Agua-Wike.
Angela, you may want to unmute yourself. We can't hear you.
Okay, I think I'm unmuted now. Thank you very much for having me. As you know, my name is Angela. I actually want to speak on the area of the strategic importance of Nigeria belonging to international and intergovernmental organizations. I have had the privilege of working as an officer, that means representing Nigeria in two of these intergovernmental organizations, oil related. And for the years I've been working for these organizations, I prefer not to mention their name, but when I say oil and gas related, I'm sure you will have an idea. For the years I've worked there, I noticed that the people we send to work in such intergovernmental organizations that are actually very important to us, I struggle to understand the strategic interest they represent apart from working there. Because actually have an opportunity to meet with officials, they should be able to be debriefed on their experiences there, on what they see. I think these are the kind of things Nigeria should actually be considering, because we cannot belong to organizations without having any strategic needs for such organizations apart from just belonging. You know, we pay dues, we send people there. Yes, they earn salaries and remit money back home, but they should be able to represent interest there. And when they come back, like I said, I've worked in two of them. When they come back, there's been no effort to debrief people who work in such organizations. So I just wonder, is it just for the purpose of getting a job abroad? Is that why we send people to work in international organizations? Or do we have any strategic interest in sending Nigerians to work in such intergovernmental organizations? Because I'm yet to see what we gain from there, apart from the salaries that we earn. So I don't know, that's like a comment and a question. So maybe the experts could help me attend to those questions. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Madam. Mr. Ejinaka, it is your turn now.
I don't know, are you hearing me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
Go ahead, please.
Okay, okay. Ejinaka is my name. I retired from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs as an ambassador. Now, what I want to say, first of all, to Professor Ejiogu, I do understand the direction of your thoughts. But I also want to say that the diaspora also need to do much in showing interest to assist Nigeria. We should also recall that a number of professional diasporans were also sponsored by the federal government, some by their state governments. But at the completion of their studies, they decided to stay back. There is no kind of effort to actually kind of identify with the institutions that assisted them. We take the situation, the case of India, where we say out of 23 electronic companies in India, 21 were established by their diaspora. We look at what is happening with the Lebanese, and we look at the case with Morocco. There are a number of examples to cite. South Korea is we are on the forefront of Korean vehicles entering the US. So what role has the diasporans actually thought of, or to actually be at the forefront of projecting made in Nigerian products in all the places they are. And also to ensure, I met quite a number of Nigerian professionals in Germany. And you interact with some of them, they're not interested in coming home. They are interested in coming home when they have retired from whatever they are doing there. So in terms of being back home to assist, they place a lot of conditions. I try to also harness a number of diasporans in the places I've served. But you always have the request that the platform, the infrastructure should be laid down before they will be able to come and participate. I also know that with the Diaspora Commission, that the platform is there. And then enough for them to really not be expecting the normal saying, what is the country doing for me? Let us also see it, I appreciate your own sacrifice coming on your own. It's part of the dictum of what I can do for my country. Now, with regard to Professor Ukeje, I cannot agree less with some of the things you said. Africa will still remain the centerpiece of our foreign policy, but there could be some changes. Because if we look at the dynamics that informed that position, the dynamics have changed a lot. Those were the eras of colonialism. Today, most of the countries we assisted are now competitors. Rahim might know what I'm saying because we are all together in Addis Ababa. And we see them now as major competitors. We are not the largest contributors in African Union. Rahim might also know that. When we have the P5, you have the P5 that make the largest contributions: Nigeria, South Africa, Algeria, Egypt, and then it used to be Libya that made up the 5. So we need to maintain that, they retwist it to now know that we now have competitors, and also how do we now reassess that Afrocentric foreign policy to now be able to show the lead in different forms. The economy back home, because also your foreign policy is a function of your domestic environment. To what extent is our economy strong enough to really sustain the kind of leadership we want to play? Because he that pays the piper takes the tune. If we don't have money to keep down to assist, I say, oh, well, before we used to fall back to Nigeria, but now we see Nigeria have a lot of problems, so we decided to fall back to Libya. We see now Morocco filling that gap. So how do we really reassess our strategy to be able to now reclaim that leadership role that we want to play? The foreign policy environment is also changing. You see the role of technology.
Mr. Ejiogu, you have 30 seconds more, sir.
Okay, you have the place of technology. The dynamics have changed a lot. A number of things are influencing foreign relations, climate change, international migration, terrorism. How what structures have we had in place to address them? So I know that the foreign policy is being reviewed as we speak, and that we also making contributions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. We have a few questions that have been posted on the chat board. I want to read some of them out, please. From Mr. Patrick Otoro, he asks if the Nigerian cultural policy plays any role in our foreign policy. Another question is from Mr. Olajide Olaguju. He said, do we really think we can have a viable foreign policy architecture without ending legal thefts, which is the nationalization of natural resources that has crippled the economy because of the attendant ostrich of trying to grow the economy from the top down instead of the pre-nationalization bottom up, realistic and thriving economy? That is the second question. Mr. Jinaka has some questions, but he has had the opportunity of asking them in person now. Professor Ukeje, this question is to you from Kehinde Olayode. Said, given the dominance of economic variable as the determinant of foreign policy in the contemporary world? How strong is our economy to support a dynamic foreign policy as you articulated in your presentation? I want to add to that. What is the role of, or is there any role at all that this issue of corruption, plays in all these challenges that we have identified? I'm asking Professor Ukeje and Professor Ejiogu, does corruption play any role in the inadequacies that we have identified in our foreign policy architecture? Thank you, sir.
Okay. Prof. Ejiogu, would you like to take first, or would you like me to take the first shot?
Yeah, let Professor please go. Let Professor PJ please go on first.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you very much. My basket is really very full, and I'd like to thank those who have contributed. It shows that this conversation is very, very important to every one of us, and it should in fact be. I agree that there's a need to overhaul the architecture of Nigeria's foreign policy, of Nigeria's external diplomacy. And I think one concrete step in that direction will be to look at our missions abroad. We need our missions abroad to deliver on their mandates. And everybody knows the mandate of missions abroad. How many Nigerians travel abroad? And I want all of us to do a reality check between and amongst ourselves, everyone on this platform. How many of us travel abroad and actually visit our embassy to register that we are here? And I remember an encounter in 1996 as a Fulbright scholar. I had gone to Washington, and we had called the embassy to say that we are around in Washington for a conference we'd like to visit. I know the challenges that it took. The only time that our colleagues, our diplomats in Washington became relaxed was when they realized that we really didn't need them for anything. We just wanted to pay a courtesy visit. So there's something that should be done when we talk about the need to rejig our foreign policy. We also have to invest in the architecture. We've had sad stories of how Nigerian embassy officials, are kicked out of their official residence, how, we have backlog of payments, of rent, and so on and so forth. These things should not be, okay? So at the same time that we're thinking of, reorienting our foreign policy, we must look at the substructure, which is really the architecture on which it is based. I'd like to thank Ozonia. Ozonia, you've been an ambassador everywhere you've been, and I'm not surprised at all what you have said. And I think this is the average Nigerian abroad tend to be their brother's keeper and sister's keeper. And I think that this is something that we have to do with or without government. I think that we owe ourselves the responsibility as citizens of Nigeria, especially where it looks as if government is not present or adequately present, to support ourselves. And I'm very, very proud. And the story you've just narrated, you will hear that story from so many Nigerians who are in the diaspora who are very important issues. I agree, Angela, that we need to pay more attention to what we consider the strategic importance of our involvement in institutions. And in this regard, I know that there are so many Nigerians in key international organizations who work there, but there are also a lot of Nigerians who go for major international events. I have colleagues who go for key conferences, where key decisions, global decisions are taken. What do we do to debrief them? Do we in fact know them? Do we keep in touch with them? Do we leverage them? So there is so much that should in fact be doing, in terms of how we engage our experts, our diaspora community abroad. I'm not really going to focus on diaspora community, but I'm talking about even Nigerians that are sent abroad, for certain assignments. And it's the same thing locally. And this was the point I raised earlier about sometimes the way we do things at home is the same way that we do them abroad. So you send somebody to go for a conference abroad, you pay for the person and all of that, and he returns and he just sits down. You're not asking him, give me a summary of what you have done. not even about the expenses that you have incurred or how you spend the money, but tell us, give a seminar, okay? Do a kind of post-event seminar or give a short note about what you have done. We don't ask this. And this is really what we need to be doing so that when we need to do the same thing next time, we can leverage on the knowledge that has been gained. Knowledge production, knowledge banking is very, very important in order for us to be able to have continuity. Unfortunately, we've not been able to sufficiently leverage this. Mr. Ejiogu, thank you so much for the point that you have raised. But I think there's also a point to be raised about incentives. There's a point to be raised about incentives. What kind of incentives? It is not sufficient for us to say, come back and serve your country, or, return. Many of us have gone to schools abroad. For every 10 that went abroad, at least 5 or 6 will return. What kind of incentives do we have in place for those who return? Not to talk of those who refuse to return. I'll give you an example. Anywhere I go to, I always read notice boards. And I think everybody should read notice board wherever you go to. Although most of those things have become electronic now. And I read a notice board in, I think, 2005 at the London School of Economics. It was by the government Central Bank of Malaysia. They were basically asking their citizens, they mentioned the schools in particular, London School of Economics, Cambridge, Oxford, that have trained in those schools who have PhDs in economics and finance related fields to apply for positions in the Malaysian Central Bank. You know what that does? It means that the next time Malaysia is negotiating with the World Bank, they've all trained in the same place. Those staff of the World Bank and those coming from the Ministry of, from the Central Bank or the Ministry of Finance of Malaysia, they train in the same place. So you cannot bulldoze them, okay? You cannot bamboozle them, you understand? So there has to be the right incentives in order to be able to attract the right kind of staff or Nigerians from abroad. You also raised the point about whether Africa will remain the centerpiece of Nigeria's foreign policy. And I agree with you that times have really, really changed. And that was why I said these principles, the 5 principles, are like guidebooks, okay? They are guidebook, but they are not the playbook. The playbook requires us now to look at these principles to say, look, how do we adapt them to be able to respond to changing realities? The truth is that money cannot do everything. And this is also partly my response to Olayode. How come Chad, managed to get the chair of the African Union, and they are up for a second term? How much does Chad have? This is about consistency. This is about focus. This is about knowing exactly what you want and going for it. At the same time that Chad got that position, we fielded a candidate that could barely, when I saw the list, I was living in Addis then. When I saw the scoring, the internal scoring by the African Union of all the candidates, I was ashamed of myself. You know why? Because for every position, you will find hundreds of Nigerians that are eminently qualified for them. So why would we put our second 11 up in positions that are so important for Nigeria's foreign policy? So this would be my point. And we can continue this conversation. I know we don't have the luxury of time, but the bottom line is really that we have gotten to that point, we have gotten to that crossroads where we really have to sit down and ask ourselves, what really do we want? When you send government officials to New York, you ask yourself, what is their brief? What is it for Nigeria beyond shopping on the high streets? Thank you.
Thank you very much. The last statement that you made, Professor Ukeje, actually is making me to say it out in the open, because not every one of us might have been following the charts, on the board. Angela wrote something that really shook me. She said that she met a Nigerian foreign minister at an international conference, and she went to greet him with so much enthusiasm, and that the said foreign affairs minister just greeted her and went on to have a seat. And when later he looked and saw that she was chatting with some Nigerian officials, he came back, the foreign affairs minister came back and asked her which delegation she came with. As she said, she worked in the secretariat of that organization that organized the conference. And the man just turned back again and went back to his seat. Nothing more. On that note, let me call on Professor Ejiogu to please give us his own perspective of the questions that were raised. Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you very much. It's been a very spirited discussion session, and I thank Professor Ukeje, who has given a very good response. In fact, part of what I wanted to say, he has already said it in terms of the incentive for coming back. I know Honorable Ejiogu raised that issue. Yes, I also replied briefly by chat, and I said, well, there are some patriotic Nigerians who are sent abroad, and then they are trained with state money, whether civil, whether central government, federal government, or state or local government, some kind of scholarship, and they decide to stay back. Yes, there are such Nigerians, but just like Prof. Charles have said, for one Nigeria that doesn't want to come back, there are 5 more that want to come back. So the issue actually is, what is the government doing to harness strategically those who want to come back? It's easy for us to look at those who don't want to come back and focus our attention there. Why waste your time there when there are more people who want to come and contribute? What is the strategic plan in place to get them involved in the affairs of the nation? So I think if you put together the past several minutes of discussion, someone also asked, what is the role of corruption in terms of our foreign policy? You find that the issue of corruption kind of permeates all that we do, or let me say most of the things we do, whether it is locally here, whether it is even in our national team, who gets selected to play number 7 or number 10, or who gets employed in the Nigerian Immigration Service, or who gets even sent abroad. So you find that the corruption is not just stealing money, it cuts across what we do as a nation. So the national fabric of gaining advantage where you are not supposed to gain advantage has become a national 419 that we do to ourselves, gaining advantage by pretense. So we are doing each other in, and in the end, we have free for all situation. So definitely, the issue of not coming back is something that has to be dealt with. But just like Professor Ukeje have said, what is the incentive for those who even want to come back? We see even persistent resistance for those who even want to come back to come and help. We are told all kinds of things, you see, and it's all part of the corruption, because we have the less pie to share, so everybody is in the mode of survival. Well, if just like somebody pointed out, those who work in some of the international bodies, is it just to earn salary, or is there a strategic plan? So everything boils down to a strategy. And unfortunately, Nigeria has been a nation that hasn't kind of executed the strategy to the last, paying attention to details, having the sincerity of purpose, and recognizing the historical role that we have as a nation. So that mission that we have as a nation hasn't permeated. And again, that links to our education too. What kind of education are we giving to our youths from the primary school to the secondary school to the university level? So again, if we, dig deeper, we find that even right down to our education is also affecting all these attitudes. So we have a hydra-headed problem, as somebody have pointed out in the chat there. The problem we have is actually multidimensional. We are just restricting it to the issue of foreign affairs. But if we begin to synthesize solutions for the issue of foreign affairs, our strategy, how do we deal with diaspora trying to come home, it boils down to the national problem that we have created for ourselves. We have let mediocrity take over meritocracy. We see a situation whereby even when we have competent hands, that happens locally here too, we don't get them involved. You look at the issues of contract. I don't believe Julius Berger is the best construction company in the world. There are Nigerians who are civil engineers and all that. Even as an electrical engineer, I understand a few things about road construction, excavation and blinding and all that. And then we have professors of civil engineering here. We have civil engineering companies here. But all the important roads are being built by Julius Berger, and the money gets back to Berlin or Bonn in Germany, capital flight. And then we see government that is voting billions and billions and billions, and that money leaves. We have had oil for 1957, okay, and then you see little or no local content. Even when the law is passed, like the local content law is passed, you see even we Nigerians are even in the forefront of circumventing it. The quota that is given to Shell is increased because when the Shell people go to the immigration, they settle whoever is in charge, and he increases the engineering quota from the people that are abroad. So it cuts across all that we do. And so we need to re-examine ourselves at the age of 60 to find out why we deal with the foreign aspect of, foreign policy aspect. But we find out that this is just one aspect of the harder problem that we have. So yes, we have this problem, and there are patriotic Nigerians who have more or less taken the bull by the horn, despite the fact that there are local resistance in even trying to let us come back home and contribute. As I mentioned, I know the kind of resistance I faced when I was heading the group that wrote a proposal for the World Bank to give Nigeria a center of excellence in sustainable power and energy. Okay. And I can tell you, I spent close to 2 million naira of my own money organizing the group meetings, getting the stationaries, feeding them when we ran late into the night, like dinner and stuff like that. And not one kobo came out from the institution I was represented to do this until we got even all the travels that I had to go to NUC and stuff. So, and that's just me, okay? Somebody would have said, okay, what the hell? I mean, why am I doing this? Jump into the plane and get back to wherever his base or her base is. Okay, so,
Prof, we have like 6 more minutes.
Okay.
And I still have some people whom I know will not be happy if I don't read out their questions.
All right, it's okay.
Meanwhile, there's Mr. Mukhtar Yao,
move on to those people, please.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you, Prof.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Mukhtar Yao, you asked your question. But please allow me to read out these other questions, then you ask yours. Just one moment, please. From Mr. Ungbe Azuruke. I'm sorry if I didn't pronounce the name well. It's my friend. You should be offended that I didn't get it well. The question is, at what point would Nigeria prove to be mature enough in terms of leadership role, but at home and abroad, to lead the pack in Africa as a so-called regional power and big brother Africa? The second question is from Mr. David Omozuafo. He asks, how do we evolve a leadership selection system that ensures the best is what we present? Policy is a reflection of domestic policy. If we put our acts together at home, it's never-based outside media publicity. It's never-based outside. Media publicity does not earn much by doing the right thing. And then, Mr. Yao, please go ahead and ask your question.
Mr. Yao, are you still there?
It's like he's no more there. He was there earlier on. I'm looking.
Okay.
Okay, we can move ahead. I can't see him.
It's okay. So the questions that I asked, that I read out from Mr. Omozuafo and Mr. Ungbezu Uruke.
Okay, Yao is back, moderator.
Okay. Yao, take care.
Yao, you want to unmute yourself?
Thank you, Simon.
Oh, okay, go ahead, please.
Unmute yourself. Can you unmute him, Simon?
Okay,
Yeah, I've
sorry.
done that.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead, please. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for having me and for giving me the opportunity to speak out my question. Let me begin by thanking Hajia Rahimat for a wonderful job and all the people who have made this a great success, this program a great success. My question or observation goes to Mr. Charles' presentation, because he has mentioned a lot of serious issues that has to do with the foreign policy of Nigeria, and some of the provoking things out of it is that there has not been at least a serious reform since the regime of former President Ibrahim Babangida, that is since 1986. And the kind of issues he highlighted on how Nigeria invests in countries like Liberia and Angola, and there has not been serious follow-up. So one would start asking the question is, what do we really want to achieve after investing so much in these countries, both material and human? And at the same time, one would like to ask the question of then what are we working toward to achieve after all this kind of investments? So what I would like to ask him is, please, can he explain to us as to what kind of stakeholders should be involved to bring about a kind of a new strategy of maybe meeting the government or pressurizing the government to at least bring about an effective foreign policy, especially during this very difficult moment of post-pandemic of COVID-19 in all parts of the world. So what kind of stakeholders does he think should come on board? And what kind of strategy should be adopted so that we can meet up with some of the challenges we're having? Thank you very much.
May I respond to those questions? Hello, moderator, may I respond to those questions?
Yes, sir. You have 1 minute to respond, sir. Just 1 minute.
That is very generous of you.
No, let him talk, Akeem.
Okay, I've been overruled. Please go ahead, Prof.
I'd like to start with Mr. David Omozuafo. The question you raised about leadership selection system is very, very pertinent. Any form of leadership selection system that is not based on meritocracy will always be on quicksand. And I said it earlier that for every position in this country, just advertise a position, you will see hundreds of Nigerians that are qualified. I mean, those who advertise for positions, you know, in the newspapers, for instance, when they receive applications, the thing comes in dilute. You're looking for somebody who has a first degree. You have somebody who comes with a PhD and says, I'm ready to do the same work. So our problem is not really that we do not have the right kind of people with the qualifications, okay? But the system, the curious system that throws up, that does not throw up those people, but throws up other kinds of people, is something that we really have to work on. Federal character, equality. In principle, these are not bad policies, okay? And they have been enshrined in the Constitution. But tell me, why would you leave somebody with the right kind of competencies, okay, but simply because he comes from certain parts of the country? So my point is really that merit has to prevail. The truth is that, and I agree with you, that if we don't put our acts together at home, it will be a waste expecting much from abroad. I mean, this is the reality of the international system that we live in today, okay? If you want countries to accord you respect, you must first and foremost respect yourself. If you want countries to do certain things to you, you must not do those things to yourself. So my point, therefore, is that a country's foreign policy is a reflection of its own domestic realities. And if we do not address these domestic realities, we will continue to falter in terms of the pursuit of our foreign policy. Somebody asked, Mufta Yao, you asked, when will Nigeria be matured enough to lead Africa? I think that we have, at different points in time, been matured. And I think that maturity is a work that is it's a permanent work in progress. What we probably need at this time is to take stock of where we have gone wrong, what we have done wrong, and then begin to try and make them right. And one way of doing this, for instance, and I've mentioned some of them. I said, for instance, that we keep putting our money into ventures that we don't expect any dividend of return, any returns. That can be changed. It's something that is qualitative. It can be changed. It can be tackled. Okay? I have mentioned that money is necessary but not sufficient in order to earn goodwill. That is a reality. So we must, as a nation, rise up to occasion, especially when it affects Africa. Frankly, in spite of everything, in spite of all the challenges that Nigeria faces, Nigeria still has the potential, okay, of being a credible voice on behalf of Africa affairs within the international system. That is the reality of it. But to do that, we must make sure that we put the right people in the right places so that they can do the right thing. There is no doubt that we need to have another conversation since 1986. 1986, that's almost about 30 years or thereabouts. We need to have another conversation around, our foreign policy priorities. But the kind of conversation that I think that we should be having, it's not the kind of conversation where we just come gather and talk. Not the usual national conference, where people just come and talk and nothing is implemented in terms of, the outcomes of it. I believe that we should have a conversation. But in any conversation that we have on Nigeria's foreign policy, and regardless of who leads it, I don't think that Nigeria should repudiate its responsibility or the lead role that it should play on the continent of Africa. Okay, we might be facing challenges today. And I remember many, many years ago in 1996, I sat down with a group of Southern Africans. This was a time when the 419 first started. And they were saying all kinds of things about Nigeria. And I told them, you people are so ignorant about so many things. In the most difficult days of in your countries, we were the ones that stood by you. So we might be going through problems now, but it is not an excuse for you to bite the finger that fed you. So this is the reality. A lot of countries that should look up in the face are looking elsewhere simply because we have not been able to exude the kind of goodwill that is required of us. So this is just a point I would like to raise. The conclusion is just to say that I believe in Nigeria, and this is the reason why each time I've gone out, I return, like many hundreds and thousands of Nigerians. And I believe that one day in my lifetime, my children will enjoy a better Nigeria. And I hope that you all feel the same way. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. I don't know whether it is possible for you in just 2 or 3 sentences to answer a question that we dropped earlier, which is, does Nigeria's cultural policy play any role in its foreign policy? Just 2 or 3 sentences, sir.
I saw the question and I noted it down, but I'm not an expert in culture. But okay. I think that one thing that culture can do, culture is a form of soft power. Okay, but if you use it properly. Okay, and it's not just about sending national troops abroad. Okay, it's not just about sending national troops abroad. It's not just about displaying our culture abroad. But culture is the way of life of a people. So, and if the way of life, if others cast aspersion on your way of life, then there is no way they are going to take you seriously. So perhaps what we need to do in terms of, I don't know the details of the cultural policy, but I think that Nigerians as a people, and I think that we are pathologically nice, as young people will say, we're pathologically cool people. Okay, if we can just take that charity from home, abroad, it will make a whole lot of difference. Like Abike Dabiri had said, the number of Nigerians that engage in all kinds of negative activities, you know, they are a very small percentage, but they give us very bad name. At the same time, there are so many Nigerians who are doing great exploits in different parts of the world. But the bottom line is that we have to tell our own stories. And I think this is the point where I want to stop. We have to tell our own stories. As Chimamanda Adichie said, if you don't tell your story yourself, others are going to tell your story starting with secondly. And that secondly might not be a palatable part of your story. So when we want to tell the story of Nigeria's involvement in Southern Africa, for instance, okay, and they start with the story of Nigerians who are doing shady businesses in South Africa, they miss the first part of the message of the story, which is really about the role that Nigeria played, even against its traditional friends in Southern Africa, to ensure that South Africa gained independence and to ensure that South Africa, that apartheid collapses in South Africa and that there's a new change in the whole of Southern Africa. So we have to tell our own story. If we don't tell it, others will tell it. Today, the South African elite are telling a completely different story about the role that Nigeria played in South Africa and in Southern Africa. But we continue to keep quiet. But one day, the South Africans that you see on the street, or the young South Africans today, don't know the role that Nigeria played. Zimbabweans today don't know the role that Nigeria played. Okay? But we have to tell that story first and foremost. Because if others tell that story, they are going to tell it from their own perspective. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. Ejiogu Momodu, the lead of this cluster. Chairman has just left, I read on the chat. And so, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I believe that you will agree with me that our distinguished speakers have delivered. The discussion today has been very, very interesting, very enlightening. And there's no one that will have been here from the beginning to this moment that will say he or she is not going home with something beautiful, something new, something wonderful. So it is not, though it's not my duty to thank the speakers and all others, but I still need to say thank you to our eminent speakers. Honorable Abike Dabiri-Erewa, even she has left us to attend to some other pressing state duties. Professor Emenike Ejiogu and Professor Charles Ukeje. Thank you very much for your presentations. And on that note, I want to call on Ejiogu to give a vote of thanks. Ejiogu, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much, our moderator, Akeem. Thank you very much, every member of the cluster. And this has been indeed very, very interesting. And since we have overshot the time, I'll be very quick, just to make a few comments. First, it appears that we've been friends for many years, so it's not strange that she could read my mind, without being close to me. What I'm proposing for the next topic of the third edition of the webinar is precisely what Angela said. How does Nigeria leverage on its membership in international organization? For somebody who works in a similar organization, for somebody who was in Addis for 10 years, interfacing between ECOWAS and the AU, I can tell you a lot of stories. So I'm hoping that will be our next topic. And I hope you all come en masse so that we can dissect the topic. It's really, really important. We are just paying money in this membership organization. We are not getting back what we should get. We're not even getting up to 5% of what we should get. So that would be our next topic, inshallah. I also want to say that, oh, Simon, we've not gotten there. I also want to say that that you could send in your recommendations for the policy brief or the communique that we're going to issue. By the grace of God, not just the cluster, the entire IVLP will follow up with Abike Dabiri, Honorable Abike Dabiri, who, by the way, is one of us, to see if we can, make a change. I'm noticing some of the recommendations, here. And I want to say that it is not entirely true that Nigeria has never provided leadership, especially within the continent and ECOWAS, or we still don't. We do. It's just that it's done in such an ad hoc, not consistent, and we don't, expect something back. We don't insist on something back. We do. As we speak, we do in various areas. So I think it's something that we should have in mind. It's just that it's not consistent, and the way we go about it is not interest driven. I'm not saying we should go the way of Trump to say Nigerian first. Like Professor Charles said, Nigeria does not have that luxury to say Nigerian first, because whether we like it or not, naturally we are the home of every Black person in the world. You might think that's his rhetoric, it is not, and that's the truth. So I agree with somebody said cultural policy. For example, why we, can't government support Nigerians living abroad to set up Nigerian restaurants? As a cultural policy, people love Nigerian food. Everywhere we go, people love Nigerian food. So those are some of the innovative and creative ways I think we can advance our foreign policy beyond relying on our small cycle of diplomats to be our ambassadors. So I'm not going to start another debate, just to say thank you very much to everybody that has joined us and has remained with us. And that I hope that by the next time we call you for the next webinar, you will come with us. I appreciate everybody, all those that I know and those that I don't know. Please, we have put up our email. Send us any recommendations so that we can include in the communique and the policy brief. And by the grace of God, we will continue to interact with you as we go on and discuss about Nigeria. It's the most beautiful country in the world. I am so happy that I'm Nigerian. I've traveled widely, and each time I get to Murtala Mohammed Airport, even when the immigration officers are misbehaving, I have a smile on my face because I'm happy to be back home. Thank you very much, and happy independence to everyone.
Arise, O compatriot.
Thank you. Simon, it's your turn.
Nigeria's call obey. To serve our fatherland with love and strength and faith. The labor of our heroes past shall never be in vain. To serve with heart and mind, one nation bound in freedom, peace and unity. Nigeria's call obey. To serve our fatherland with love and strength and faith. The labor of our heroes shall never be in vain. To serve with heart and
Jesus.
Independent do. Hello. Hello. Nigeria balẹ̀. Independent. 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 Ẹ wá bá wa jó. Ẹ wá bá wa jó. Òmìnira dé o. Lolo.
Ajia.
Yes.
I can see you dancing, but I'm not hearing any music here.
Oh, I'm hearing it very loud, but it has stopped now.
Okay, because I can see that you are shaking your body. So and I
Yes,
want to
that
shake
is Fela's music. For those who do, that is Fela's music to mark our independence in 1960.
Yeah. But unfortunately, I didn't hear it. So, Madam, thank you for your leadership. God bless you. Thank you so much.
Okay, bye. Thank you very much. Okay, bye-bye. Thank you, everyone. I was just reading the chat. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Actually, you will need to hold on a bit.
Okay.
Yes.
What's happening?
Yes, the FAT committee need to hold on a bit.
Okay, the cluster, let's meet.
Yes.
Okay, let the cluster meet. Okay. Please, cluster, FAT cluster, let's meet. Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you. There are still a few people.
Simon, better continue your Fela music while we're waiting for the meeting to start.